And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of, it's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify with you and God and time are best aligned.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the Fred Hamptons, the Harriets, the chariots that carry us to various areas that marry us to progress. Yeah, we the harvest, the lovely days and midnight marauders, even through charges and days of darkness. No, we in the hands of the greatest artists. I see it in the waters, I see it in our daughters. They could be bridges that know no borders. For so long, them folk try to ignore us. So we at the ballot boxes to vote for us. Peace to Stacey and the people of Georgia who galvanize so that we can move forward. Steps are ordered with the presence of mind. Everything's more beautiful in time.
That's right. Everything is more beautiful with time, including the selection of the new leader of the Catholic Church, one of the biggest religious institutions in the world. We're going to talk all about that in a minute. But first things first, you're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent. And it's always great to be in your company, particularly in afternoon drive time from the West Coast to the East Coast, where I'm at today. Hopefully it is not as damp and gray in LA as it is here in DC right now as I look out the window. I'm in touch until you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And if you are streaming A More Perfect Union live right now, don't be shy about getting in a More Perfect group chat. That's right. Get in the chat for the YouTube and tap in, and don't be surprised if I might ask you a question, reel you into the conversation live while we are on air. Now, with that, it's time for some of the biggest headlines that are trending, really an opportunity for us to go beyond some of the biggest headlines. And it doesn't get any bigger than this in the world of religion. Today, history was made. We have our first American Pope. Let me tell you something. When I woke up this morning, I didn't expect that we were going to be talking about this. In fact, I was out at breakfast this morning with my DC bestie, who is now in LA, and he was visiting, and we were having breakfast here in DC, and we got these news alerts. These news alerts went off, and we watched the moment right there on our phones, when Pope Leo made his debut. How a Chicago native became Pope? This one for the history books. For the first time, the Pope is from the United States. The world's 1.4 billion Roman Catholics have a new spiritual leader, the 267th pontiff, to lead the nearly 2,000-year-old church. Robert Francis Prevost, a Chicago native, was selected by the Papal Conclave on May 8th. That was just today, after 2 days of prayer. That's what I heard. That it's not like they're giving speeches and things. One of the cardinals during an interview had said that really they do a lot of praying during that time period. I think that's really kind of cool. He was elected by the College of Cardinals to succeed Pope Francis, who we all remember died on Easter morning. And he's 69 years old. He's taken the name Leo the 14th. And his selection was a surprise. It was a surprise. He was not among the top contenders expected to succeed the progressive and very popular Pope Francis. He was ordained back in 1981 as a member of the Order of St. Augustine. And he holds a bachelor's degree from Villanova University outside of Philadelphia. I know it well. My brother Joe graduated from Villanova. He also has a master's in divinity from Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. He holds a doctorate in canon law. So, he is he's quite the scholar. And he will succeed a groundbreaking, pioneering Pope whose progressive positions and emphasis on inclusivity and ability to connect with people all over the world from all backgrounds and across all faiths made him a beloved religious figure, even in secular realms. And so we're thrilled to see it. And it's not just us, but Black Catholics are also responding and are feeling fairly optimistic about this new pope, as has been said by Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who celebrated the Pope's election. He said, "This is truly the greatest moment in the history of the greatest city in the world, the city of Chicago." He said it was no coincidence that the new pontiff's name references Pope Leo the 13th, who worked on workers' rights. Chicago, of course, has been at the center of the labor rights movement, making this a true sign that the rights of workers will be prioritized by the Catholic Church. Brandon also noted that the new pope speaks Spanish and is a defender of immigrant communities and immigrant rights, saying this is truly a testament that to our commitment to immigration is being fortified with this incredible elevation of a pope from Chicago. And so already you have one of the nation's leading Black mayors really rooting Pope Leo on. And so we'll be digging more into this with my next guest, who knows a little bit about the Catholic Church. If I remember correctly, he's a pretty proud Jesuit and very active in the church in advancing the church's social justice commitment. When we come forward, we'll be joined with my friend George Fothery. He is so busy. He's so busy doing extraordinary work. Every time I talk to him, he's doing something consequential. And when we come forward, we're going to talk about this organization he recently founded. It's called Black Land Loss. It's the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project. It's a nonprofit initiative dedicated to collecting, preserving, and amplifying the overlooked stories of Black land loss in America. We'll talk to him about that project and also get his reaction to the new pope when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and in just a moment, we'll be joined with our guest, George Fothery, who is, as I said before, doing some pretty consequential work. But again, I just want to lift up this very unique moment that we find ourselves in with the first American Pope. I don't know if you all saw it, but I was flipping through Instagram before the show, and I saw an interview that the Pope's brother had done in Chicago, pointing out that the Pope is a Sox fan. George, are you surprised that the Pope is a Sox fan? Not Cubs, Sox. Well, for the people that are streaming, you can see that George is at a loss for words, which I've never seen before. But we are so delighted to have you join us, George Fothery. A lot of people know you from your activism, your legal activism related to Bruce's Beach in Manhattan Beach, and getting that returned to the family. Well, now you're at it again. You're founder of the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project, which is a nonprofit initiative dedicated to collecting, preserving, and amplifying overlooked stories of Black land loss in America. What can't you do, George Fothery?
Oh, there's a long list. But first of all, brother, great to see you again. And thanks for having me on to talk about this new project.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. We're going to talk about that project. But first things first, I want to get your reaction to the elevation of our new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. I know, and I'm sure many of our leaders, learners, and listeners know that you are on the board of trustees for Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Jesuit institution. Yeah. Yeah, I got to tell you, I think like a lot of folks, I was surprised that they chose an American Pope, even though I think if you look at how and where he spent the last few decades of his life, it looks like it's mostly been abroad. Here's what I was really excited about the work and the direction that the previous Pope was taking us in, and the important message that he had, that this church is a church that's got big gates and big gates for a lot of different folks to come through. I was excited about that message, and I hope that this Pope will continue in that tradition. I also, I wonder a little bit, and I think this is important, but, on the one hand, we've got a leader of the country right now who's got a very different message. We've got a leader of our country who's talking about a narrow gate and closing doors and closing borders, and and a kind of nationalism that is exclusive of the other. And so, my hope in my heart is that the Pope, also being an American Pope, can be a powerful counterweight to that direction, and talk about a message of inclusivity, and talk about a message of kind of coming together and not being as divisive as we've seen our other leader be.
Yeah, and on the issues, there are a number of folks that are trying to feel out, well, where is he going to be on LGBTQ issues? Where is he going to be on issues related to helping migrants, or equality for women, or climate change, an issue that's very much a part of the legacy of Pope Francis, who was a steward of climate change. Are there any particular bellwether issues that you think we should pay a little closer attention to as this new Pope, finds his rhythm in his new role?
It's funny, when you were on the last segment, you said, hey, your next guest, you're going to talk about, his views on the Pope. It made me wonder. I was like, who's your next guest? I thought it was me. Who was? I was. Folks don't know this, but growing up, I grew up in Chino, California. Went to St. Margaret Mary Church there in Chino. Was an altar boy for about 7 years. The first thing I ever wanted to be growing up was actually a priest. And
Really?
people, they would actually joke. They'd say, if you became a priest, you'd be, you'd be fathery. They joke about it. Brother, when I was in high school, my mom, and this is, this is real. My mom, when I was in high school, my mom, she actually dropped me off for, I think it was a day, might have been a weekend, but at a local seminary, so that I was really curious about it, and so I could get a sense. So, anyways, I think the good Lord in her wisdom had a different path for me. But to your question about, a bellwether, what do I think is important for the church to really take a strong leadership role in? Look, I think there's so many issues, so many of the issues that you mentioned. The one that stands out for me is being an advocate for the poor. I think when you look at, you look not just globally, but you look at in our country, nominally the wealthiest country on earth, and our gap is just expanding between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. And I can't think of anything that's less Christian or anything that's less Catholic than promoting a society and a democracy or community that allows suffering solely on the basis of how people were born and the condition they were born in. So for me, what I'm really paying attention to is, what's this new Pope Leo's message going to be around how we can be of service and take care of those who are among the who are living in poverty and among the least of us.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And earlier in the week, I was covering a story here at the U.S. Capitol with Reverend William Barber, who, as you know, is a champion for the poor, and doing that with the Coalition Repairers of the Breach. And so I think, that's a good bellwether issue for us to keep our finger on. But let's talk about the land. Earlier this week, I had Dr. Jocelyn Imani from the Trust for Public Land. She was on, and she was talking about, some of the issues related to public lands, federal public lands in the news, and separating the fact from the fiction for us. But she reminded us that the land is a part of our collective memory. The land is a birthright for us all. And so talk to us about what inspired you to create this organization, Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the name of the nonprofit. It's a Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project. I know that's a mouthful, but if folks want more information, they can go to www.blacklandloss.org. And when you get to that page, there's a button at the top of the middle of the page. The button says share your story. And that's what this project is all about. It's about collecting these stories. So it goes back to what you were talking about. After we were successful, and this was, as this was a team effort. It was, the supervisor, Janice Hahn, supervisor, Holly Mitchell, Kavan Ward, Lisa Richardson. There were a number of people involved in getting that land back for the Bruce family. And I was one of them. I was happy to be part of that. Chief Dwayne Shepard. But because I'm an attorney, once we got the land back, my phone started ringing off the hook. And I was getting voice messages and emails every day. I'd be at lunch and my phone would ring and I'd look and it'd say Huntsville, Alabama. And I was like, I don't know anybody in Huntsville, Alabama. It'd be Baton Rouge, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was getting phone calls and emails every day from families across the country. It was mostly Black families, but it was not only Black families looking for legal help to get their land back. And the stories I heard, attorney fathery, we had 40 acres of oil land in Louisiana. And when my great grandfather died, the neighbor forged his name on the deed and we lost everything. Can you help us? Attorney fathery, we had a 100-acre cattle ranch in South Texas. And one day the sheriff showed up with guns and dogs, told my grandparents, if they don't leave town, there'll be trouble. We left that night. We lost everything. Can you help us? I got hundreds of these messages. And what I realized was that our legal system does not provide adequate remedy in 99.9999% of these cases. And when I say adequate remedy, let me be clear, our legal system doesn't provide any remedy. in the vast majority of these cases. And I remember Nii-Quartelai, I remember I said that to somebody on the phone. He said, "No, Attorney Fothery, you don't understand. I've got documents, I got evidence." And I said, "Sir," I said, "Look, you don't understand. Our legal system just doesn't provide a remedy." And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, he goes, "Yeah, I guess our legal system's broken." And what I thought to myself was, brother, our legal system is not broken.
Mm-mm.
Our legal system works precisely the way it was designed to work by and for the people who designed it. And that's just not me and you. So anyways, I realized that our legal system really does not provide a legal remedy in these cases. But what I was worried about was that every year that goes by, these stories disappear. The great grandmothers die, the great uncles die, and the story keepers pass away. And when they pass, we lose these stories. And what I realize is, like, look, we go through cycles in the country when we can get stuff done and we can't get stuff done. What I realized is, if we don't collect and preserve these stories, they can be lost forever. And then we really have no path towards justice. And so the urgency I felt, and look, a lot of this work, I looked at what they did with the Shoah Foundation, which is a foundation started by Steven Spielberg, and it was set up to collect and preserve stories of Holocaust survivors. And now it's expanded to collect and preserve stories of survivors of genocide throughout the world. And I took a page from their playbook, and our goal is, over the next 5 years, to collect over 1,000 narratives so that we can preserve them, so that in the future we can use it to, maybe influence policy, maybe impact legislation. I think these stories are powerful. The secret that a lot of folks don't understand about Bruce's Beach is folks hear that the Bruce family got the land back, and they hear that I'm an attorney, so they assumed we went out and that we sued the county of LA and we demanded it. Like, the folks who know that, like, that's not how it went down. The genesis of the return of Bruce's Beach was that there was a well-preserved and compelling story. And when people like Kavan Ward heard that story, they said, "That's not right. We got to do something." When people like Janice Hahn and Holly Mitchell heard that story, they said, "That's not right. We got to do something." When Senator Stephen Bradford heard that story. And so what I gleaned from that experience was that these stories really matter, but if we don't collect them now, we'll never be able to use them in the future.
I mean, I love how you are leaning into narrative as a tool to bring about some modicum of justice. I oftentimes say to people, if you don't know what to do as it relates to any sort of injustice you might be experiencing or witnessing, you know what to do: document it, right? It could be a simple note to self. It could be in a journal. It could be taking a photograph. It could be a video diary, right? But getting these things on the record, these experiences, bearing witness on the record, that's the kind of stuff that helps folks to tell your story more broadly. It certainly helps lawyers be able to really make their case in no uncertain terms. And so when we come forward, I want to talk a little bit more about the origin story for this effort. A lot of people don't know this, but at the turn of the 20th century, Black landowners owned and operated about 890,000 farms. And around mid-century, that number began to decline sharply. Yeah. Beginning in 1950, they lost more than 500,000 farms. By 1970, only 45,000 remained. And during the 60s alone, the Black farm count in 10 southern states dropped by 88%. And so this ain't no little niche issue. This is an issue that's been left unaddressed for far too long, and George Fothery and company are doing something about it. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with George when we come forward.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. President Trump is calling the Obama Presidential Center a disaster, blaming cost overruns on hiring woke workers.
And he said something to the effect, I only want DEI, I only want woke. He wants woke people to build it. Well, he got woke people, and they have massive cost overruns.
He claimed construction has stopped due to a lawsuit. The Obama Foundation denied the claim, saying the project remains on track for a 2026 opening. The Federal Reserve wraps up a two-day meeting today with a decision on interest rates. The central bank is widely expected to hold its benchmark short-term borrowing rate steady. And a jury is expected to be seated today in the Sean Diddy Combs sex crimes trial. The embattled rapper and business mogul is facing life in prison on several charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering in New York City. Prosecutors allege he threatened and coerced women for sex. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Slowing on the 5, getting out of Burbank. That southbound side loads up at Alameda, delays all the way to the 605. And northbound slowing out of Norwalk from Imperial Highway, heading back towards Lakewood Boulevard. More slowing ahead in Boyle Heights from the 60 and stretches all the way to the 14. Tough on the 405. This is southbound out of West LA. Delays from Sunset Boulevard and stretches all the way to the 605. And it's very slow rolling on the 15 right now out of Norco from 2nd Street all the way to the 210 freeway.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Organizers of the LA Summer Olympics in 2028 made it official Thursday morning. The LA Coliseum will host the opening and closing ceremonies for the Summer Games, scheduled for July 14th to the 30th. This is the third time the Coliseum is hosting the Summer Olympics. The Coliseum hosted the ceremonies and track and field events in 1932 and 1984. SoFi Stadium in Inglewood was an option, but logistics would have made it difficult to host the opening and closing ceremonies. SoFi is hosting the highly popular swimming competitions. A temporary pool and other swimming facilities will be constructed inside SoFi. The city of Inglewood will be busy during the Olympics. The Intuit Dome is hosting the basketball events. The Rams are taking their minicamp to Hawaii. The Rams have scheduled their minicamp for June 16th to the 18th on the island of Maui. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
At Providence, health equity is the foundation of our community health initiatives, ensuring care reaches those who need it most. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in America. African Americans face a higher risk of life-threatening issues like hypertension, the number one cause of stroke. 55% of Black adults have high blood pressure. The good news is 80% of heart disease is preventable with healthy lifestyle changes and patient-centered care provided by the Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. From routine screenings to advanced procedures, Providence provides comprehensive care for the heart conditions that overly impact our community by ensuring patients receive treatments tailored to their needs. Let's stop the trend of being 30% more likely to die from heart-related problems. Take charge of your heart health with world-class cardiologists who deliver the compassionate care you deserve. Visit providence.org/SoCalHeart. That's providence.org/SoCalHeart to request an appointment.
Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me! National News The Consequence. Informed opinion. And analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I'm really delighted to be in conversation, even more importantly, in community with George Fothery. He is not new to this. He is true to this. He's founder of the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project. It's a nonprofit initiative that is dedicated to collecting, preserving, amplifying overlooked stories of Black land loss in America. George, right before the break, I was just sort of calling attention to the history. There's a pattern of Black land dispossession that dates back, decades, if not hundreds of years in this country. What inspired you to want to do something about it in your own way? Given all of your talents and relationships, what made you decide to address it in this way?
Yeah. So look, I got a lot to say about this, but let me just say the website again. It's www.blacklandloss.org. If you visit there, we've got some examples of stories we've collected, but more importantly, there's a button in the middle of the page at the very top. The button says Share My Story. And if you or somebody in your family, somebody you know, has experienced Black land loss, we want to hear from you. That's the only way we're going to collect these stories, to make sure they're not lost, make sure they're not forgotten. But yeah, let me tell you how this started. So I mentioned all the phone calls I got, and look, Nii-Quartelai, I thought I knew about this stuff, right? I'm a student of history. I'm a student of kind of the racial impact of policies and practices by the government, by lending institutions. So I understood redlining, and I understood, racially motivated eminent domain and racially restrictive covenants. I thought I knew how all this stuff worked. But I got to tell you, as I've been going out and collecting these stories, I'm getting like a PhD in American history that they don't offer at the universities. And let me just share what I'm talking about. So I flew to Texas. A lot of Black land loss in Texas. I flew to Texas and I sat down with a family and I said, tell me how tell me who stole your land. And they looked at me. They said, no, but nobody stole our land. And I said, well, okay, what happened? And they said, we had a 30-acre property here in this county in Texas, and in the 1950s, they discovered oil in the county, oil everywhere, all over everybody's property. And so what happened was the oil companies came in and they started signing leases with the property owners to drill on their land, and they would pay a ton of money to drill and pump the oil from the land. They said that the oil companies refused to sign leases with the Black landowners. And so what happened is, in the county, everybody's getting rich. And so the county starts jacking up the property taxes and jacking up the land assessments because everybody can afford it, except for who? Except the Black landowners. And so after about a decade of this, you can't afford to pay the taxes, so you got to sell the property. You put it up for sale at auction, and who buys it? It's your white neighbor next door who's getting all the oil money. So it's like I didn't study that. So, okay, so that's the story I collect. The next day, I'm still in Texas. I go to another family, sit down, and I say, tell me who stole your land. They said, nobody stole our land. And I said, well, what happened? And they said, we had farmland. And they said, in order to operate a farm, you need to borrow money every year, right? Because you got to borrow money at the beginning of the season to rent the equipment and get the seeds. And then at the end of the season, end of the crop, you sell all the crop and you can pay back the loan. But like a farm doesn't operate without loans, without financing. They said the financing is from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. And all that money, all those loans are administered locally through the counties. And they said, it's the good old boys network. And so what happened was all of the farmers who were white would get these loans. The black farmers couldn't get the loans. And so what happens is, like, after a few years, you can't run the farm. And so you got to sell the farm. You got to put it up for auction. And who bids on it? It's your white neighbor next door who's getting it. And so it's like, it's a playbook, right? I thought I understood how they ran the game through redlining and racially, but it goes like so deep, and it was pervasive in every aspect. And so for me, it's been fascinating to discover the extent and the degree and just how insidious these practices were. And how no matter who you were, if you were black and you somehow managed to acquire property, which was no small feat, right? There were different strategies that they could use to not steal it from you, right? This was not illegal what they were doing, but they made sure that your family was not going to benefit from that land ownership. So that's one. The other thing is, like, the stats you were given, you were talking about, like, the late 1800s, early 1900s. Let's be clear. Some of these practices are continuing to present day. Right. And so we're not talking about stuff that happened 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Look at the great, the financial recession and those subprime mortgages. Like, the statistics on that is you would have black borrowers who had, higher credit scores, who had higher kind of financial profiles than some of their white counterparts. But the black borrowers were the ones that were being steered into, like, these very these very risky mortgage products, right? So some of these practices are still continuing to today. This is not something that's way back in our rearview mirror.
And so I've got to ask you, George, in our remaining minutes, what are you learning from the stories that you've been privy to, curated by the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project, that are informing some of the work that you are doing just as a friend, as a neighbor, to folks who've been impacted by the wildfires in Altadena and Eaton Canyon?
So look, that's another example. And again, I mentioned that this is not, it's not isolated, but I think folks, your listeners, Nii-Quartelai, they understand that Altadena had something really special, right? You look at the black home ownership population percentages in the state of California and really across the country, and it's about 40%. California, we're actually doing worse in terms of black home ownership today than we were 50, 60 years ago, when it was actually legal to discriminate against somebody who was black and selling them real estate. I think we had like 42% then, and we're just below 40% now. So statewide, we're doing a little worse. Altadena bucked that trend. Altadena black home ownership was above 80%. Like, that does not exist in communities in this country. Now, what happened was a lot of those homes, a lot of those properties, it was second, third generation home ownership, which is powerful, which is important. Unfortunately, in some of those situations, right, in some situations where you've owned a home and you don't have a mortgage, a lot of those homes could be uninsured or underinsured. Right. A lot of times, like, it's a sucks to have a mortgage, but one of the things the lender makes sure you do is that you've got full mortgage and you've got full insurance on the home. And so, what I was worried about was that you've got this rich history and tradition of a black community in Altadena, and the community there. It's interesting if you talk about how how Altadena became such a thriving Black community. It was really, it was a phoenix that came out of the ashes of racism. It was because they put the 210 freeway extension in Pasadena and displaced a lot of folks, and they moved to Altadena. It's because they found contaminated land from JPL in the 1960s, and you had white folks who wanted to get out of the community and sell their property, and so they offered seller financing to Black families who would come. So it's a kind of really interesting history. But the point is Black home ownership in Altadena was very strong. Because of the fires, you had a lot of folks in that community, Black folks in that community, who lost their land. And so I felt compelled to get involved and share solutions that I think they're creative solutions that can help folks in that community figure out how to, if you were uninsured or underinsured, some policy solutions that could help folks figure out a way to hold on to that land. And the message that I want to leave us with is, look, not everybody. It doesn't make sense for everybody who lost a home up there to rebuild. You got folks who were older, you got folks in different situations. And so that's a decision that's got to be made on an individual level. My message is, though, if you don't feel like you can rebuild, now is not the time to sell, right? Hold on to that land, because what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years, you're going to have new streets, new schools, new retail, new infrastructure. And if you got to sell, if you feel like, hey, it doesn't make sense to rebuild, that's the market you want to sell into. You do not want to sell now. And so part of the thinking I've been doing is, well, how can you make that a possibility for folks who need funding now, but they don't want to, do a fire sale, right? Literally a fire sale. So anyways, it's been exciting, and I felt privileged to be involved in advising in some capacities going on there. But if I could just say one more time, we're at blacklandloss.org. We think it's imperative that we collect these stories, especially in a political environment we have now where the federal government wants to erase a lot of our history, and they don't want you to talk about things that might make folks feel uncomfortable. But look, this is not about making people feel uncomfortable. This is about preserving the facts of what happened so that we can find a way to move forward together in a way that's healing. So
I think
that's what we're doing. blacklandloss.org.
I think it's beautiful, and when it's right on brand with what this show is about, a more perfect union. It is each of us doing what we can from where we are with what we have to create the world that we want to see, to deliver the justice that we want to see. And so thank you, George, for translating that into the form of the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project. And we expect to get updates and learn more and really sort of stretch out with some of these incredible stories that you all are gathering.
Hi, brother. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for the important work and strong advocacy that you and this show provides. We need it.
Absolutely. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, the quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, also known as AD, a type of dementia that affects memory, thinking, and behavior, making everyday tasks challenging. But did you know that Black adults age 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? There are things you can do to help reduce your risk for developing AD. Managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure is crucial. Staying physically active, maintaining social connections, eating a healthy diet, and keeping your mind engaged with activities like reading or puzzles can all contribute to brain health. It's also important to recognize some common signs and symptoms of early AD, such as forgetfulness that causes problems with everyday life, asking the same question a few times in a row, and difficulty concentrating on basic tasks. If you see these signs in yourself or loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatallzearly.com. That's treatallzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's time for the quiet part out loud. Now, listen, you might remember that I think earlier this week there was a headline that revealed that one of Pope Francis's final wishes was that his Pope Mobile be delivered to Gaza to help provide aid to kids in Gaza. Well, speaking of Gaza, I'm not sure if you've heard, but World Central Kitchen is closing soup kitchens across Gaza due to dwindling supplies. And so, today there's the announcement of the new Pope Leo the 14th, who in a lot of ways seems to be continuing in the traditions of Pope Francis. And in reflecting on the legacy of Pope Francis, it is now common knowledge that the Pope had been in communications with leadership from the church on the ground in Gaza almost every day. And so cut to Pope Francis's dying wish, send the Pope Mobile to Gaza to help deliver supplies to kids. Meanwhile, you have World Central Kitchen, the organization that was founded by Jose Andres. They've been in Gaza for some time now. And NPR is reporting that they are closing soup kitchens across Gaza due to dwindling supplies. Israel's ongoing blockade of humanitarian assistance for Gaza has forced this leading aid group to shut its community soup kitchen. They shut it down today as it faced empty warehouses and no replenishment of supplies in the war-battered enclave. U.S.-based World Central Kitchen, which was serving 133,000 meals per day, they said there's almost no food left in Gaza with which to cook. That's what they're saying right now in this hour. The ongoing hunger is threatening Gaza's population, already battered by 19 months of war. And in April, the World Food Program said its food stocks in Gaza had run out under Israel's blockade, ending the main source of sustenance for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in the territory. A UNICEF spokesperson said that most of Gaza's water system is damaged, while fuel shortages make it harder to operate desalination plants or water trucks. I'm painting a picture for you in terms of what is happening in Gaza. And I'm painting a picture because it wasn't that long ago where we saw protests across the country and around the world drawing attention to the humanitarian disaster that we were watching occur in Gaza. We couldn't turn away from it. It found its way into our social media feeds. And right now, it appears that Gaza, the people of Gaza, may be on the brink of starvation. Malnutrition and hunger are becoming increasingly prevalent in the Gaza Strip as Israel's total blockade enters its third month. And aid agencies say that supplies to treat and prevent malnutrition are running out. Remember, Israel imposed the blockade on March 2nd, and they then shattered a 2-month ceasefire by resuming military operation in the territory on March 18th. It said that both steps aim to pressure the militant Hamas group to release hostages, and rights groups call the blockade a starvation tactic and a potential war crime. With restaurants and bakeries being closed, community kitchens are often the only way for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza to eat a daily meal. Have you had your meal today? How many meals have you had so far today? How long could you go if you couldn't get a meal? Or if you couldn't feed your children a meal? A third of those supported by the UN have closed in the past 10 days for lack of food or fuel. That's according to the UN Humanitarian Office. That's what's happening. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We're doing our part to make sure that we're providing you with news and information that you can trust. And every episode, we remind you to do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means, do something. If you have a voice, you have a microphone, you have a social media feed, it's probably a good time to use it. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union, including our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer, Andy, our show producers, Faraji, Kim, and Art, and of course, each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners. We appreciate you. We curate this show each and every day with you in mind. Hopefully, it provides you with a ray of light, some food for thought, maybe a good chuckle, but always good company. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.